I'd like to say something to Mary Barra. Look at this interview and realize we want to make money too, okay? We want to make a good living for our children. We don't make enough money, okay? We don't make enough money for what we do for GM and our plants and for our family.
Mary Barra better take us seriously because we're not going until we, at the very least, restore back what was taken in 2008.
It was 2008 when the legacy OEMs were struggling in the wake of the great financial crisis. To keep their employers in business, UAW members agreed to allow them to institute policies that just might save the automotive industry. And some of those policies included a tiered pay system where new hires were paid less, temporary workers would be paid less, and healthcare benefits would become more expensive. And now, in 2023, auto workers want their benefits back, and more. Record profits, record CEO compensation, record sales. You've heard it before, but can you imagine being General Motors this week in the midst of their negotiations with the UAW? It was on Tuesday that the automaker released their Q3 sales figures, which showed they increased sales by over 21% year over year. To put that in perspective, their performance was the best out of the American OEMs this quarter, with Ford posting a 14% increase, Stellantis, interestingly, posting a 1% decrease. With GM's strong results, how does that affect their ability to bargain with a union? This past Monday, the UAW finally sent a counteroffer to GM, with spokesman David Barnes saying there are significant gaps remaining between the proposals. I can only assume when Sean Fain saw the sales figures, he'd want to withdraw that offer, but what we know for sure is that they want a 40% pay increase and GM's only willing to pay 20% more. And as negotiations continue, some news broke today that might make one think that GM is hunkering down for a drawn-out strike. Reuters implies otherwise, saying the two sides are getting closer on a deal, but it didn't stop GM from preparing for the worst. In a move that would send GM stock reeling, their CFO appeared on CNBC to speak to Phil LeBeau about a new $6 billion line of credit they just opened with JP Morgan.
Let's bring in Paul Jacobson, CFO of General Motors. Paul, thanks for joining us today. You guys have just announced a new $6 billion line of credit, essentially to give you guys a little more flexibility, financial flexibility, as the strike grinds on. Is this a sign you expect this strike to continue for several weeks more?
Well, good afternoon, Phil. Thanks for taking the time to talk with us today. You know, I think I wish I was here to talk about a settlement that we were done. You know, we certainly put really strong offers on the table. We've had over 5 offers. We put a record offer on the table before the strike happened, and we continue to believe that we can find an agreement. The facility that we announced today is a $6 billion line of credit that I think is just prudent in light of some of the messages that we've seen from some of the UAW leadership that they intend to drag this on for months, and we've got to continue to fund the transformation and really position GM for the future for all of our people.
Paul Jacobson thought it was best to secure this facility in light of the leaked messages of the members of UAW's negotiation team, which made mention of a predetermined strike with a strategy to ruin the reputations of the car companies. The auto manufacturer's stock dropped 2% when the street caught wind of the deal and would make a new 52-week low off the news before slightly recovering into today's close. This extra liquidity wasn't the only GM news to break today. So as Tesla shareholders, we know that Elon has said in the past, the future of Tesla's valuation lies in artificial intelligence and in turn autonomy. Did you know Mary Barra actually has a similar line of thought for the future of GM's profits? Let's go back in time to August 27, 2021, and remind ourselves of a Bloomberg interview the CEO would do in reference to her company's software as a service offering.
To it. What percentage of the revenue will come from actually selling the vehicles as opposed to the services?
I actually think that if we fast forward 10 years, I think the software services, subscriptions, and the other adjacent businesses that we can grow into because of the technology that we have will be equal or greater than what we'll have from from selling the vehicle. That's my vision, and I think that's...
Now that we're caught up in Mary's views on technology, maybe it would be alarming to know that the Chief Technology Officer of GM just resigned today. The news was broken by the information, and they stated Gil Golan was only in his position for a month because the previous CTO just retired. What's even more surprising is when you understand his background. Golan has been a lifelong GM employee, has never worked anywhere else since graduating from university. Golan is 58 years old and most recently held a post as the lead for technology acceleration. When he was tapped to take over his retiring predecessor, he mentioned making a dream team of battery scientists and was once described as a person you would see working for Tesla or a startup company. One might think a software-based battery electric vehicle needs to have a strong set of tech-savvy people behind it. This all seems quite worrisome because as Jim Farley once said, Legacy Auto has never coded software like this before, and in regards to batteries, it wasn't but in summer of this year when Mary Barr expressed her frustration with the battery production for all her cars being delayed. So what can we infer from all this news? Are battery problems insurmountable? Enough that essentially the leader of battery development just left the company? What should we think about GM's liquidity and their negotiations with the UAW? Whatever the resolution is, GM is finding their ambitions of becoming the leader in EV sales at risk.
GM CEO Mary Barra believes the company will dominate the U.S. market.
We're going to be #1 mid-decade in EVs in the U.S.